In this demo, we will create an import for payroll data entry on Sage 100 version 2018. Before we begin the import, I always suggest to manually enter an entry just to get an idea of what fields are going to be required. So let's open up payroll data entry. Okay, so for payroll data entry, I have batch entry enabled, so I'm going to need to enter a batch number. So let's go ahead and enter the batch number. Now I have a pay cycle entry screen. This is a separate table, so we'll need to enter. We'll need to create an import into this table as well. So this is pay cycle. I'm going to go ahead and choose a pay cycle. Period start date. I'll need to enter that. Period ending date automatically calculated, so I won't need to import that. Check date, I need to enter that. And if I click OK, and it takes me to the next screen, those are all the fields I actually need for that import. I will say no to automatically pay employees. And so now I'm in the payroll data entry. I'll need to enter an employee number, so I'll make a note that I'll have to import employee number. And after I select my employee number, I'll need to enter a entry number, and I'll just go ahead and call it entry 1, and then go to lines. And so for lines, you'll notice we need line type, so earnings. Typically when we're importing, for the majority of the time, we're just importing earnings. And for the deductions, generally we'll just take auto deductions on that, and that's what we'll do on this demo. So line type, earning, code, my earning code that I'm bringing in, so I'll have to import that. The rate automatically comes in. Hours, typically I will import hours as well. So basically the only thing you really need here are line type, earning code, and hours. So let's just go ahead and add another earning code, overtime, and let's just say 5 hours. Okay, and that's it. We'll go ahead and accept this. And yes, to take auto deductions. And accept. And that's it. So now I have a general idea of what's needed for my import. So let's go ahead and begin the import, creating the import job. What I want to do is I just want to go back into data entry, and we'll just delete what we manually keyed in here. Okay, let's double check. Okay, nothing in there. Okay, so import job maintenance, let's create our job. So we will need to create a job for the pay cycle. I'll just call this PR, how about PR data 1 and PR to begin our lookup. And let's find the payroll cycle. Okay, and so our source files, this is the source file we're going to import. So basically we're given a date, we're given an employee number. Notice the employee number has the department with the employee number. And then this column, the third column, 1, 2, 3, third column is our earnings code, and the fourth column is the number of hours. So in this example, I'll be importing 2 line records, and so this is my overtime for 5 hours. Okay, so that's my source file that I'm given. So I need to create an import job based off of that. So this is our payroll cycle import. So what I want to do is I want to link up my source file. And this one's a 2. Okay, and so as we notice, I don't need all these fields in there, so I'm going to go ahead and delete a lot of these fields. When we manually keyed in, we did need batch number. I'm just going to go ahead and assign the batch number. Pay cycle, I'm going to set this up just to always be bi-weekly. So I'm going to assign a B. So every time I use this particular pay cycle import, it's just going to be bi-weekly. Because I don't have that in my source file, so all my employees are bi-weekly. So I'll just assign that. Starting date, that's in column 1. Replace column 1. Period end date. You notice that we didn't need that period end date. It automatically calculated, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this. And check date, I'm going to pull from that same column 1. And so that was check date, deduction period. And you can get rid of that too. So basically that's all I needed for that when I manually keyed in that pay cycle. So that's going to be it for this particular import. So let's just go ahead and accept this, execute it. I'll say no. I'm going to go ahead and create my payroll data entry import now. And let's just call this PR data 2. And now this is a new table. Both of these are new tables on 2018. So the table that we're going to use when we're importing payroll data entry is this payroll header. So I'll go ahead and accept that. And I'll go ahead and attach my source file. Okay, and let's go ahead and begin our import. Let me go ahead and open up our source file. So I have that open while we create this. So I had batch number. I like to put batch number as my first field, since when we manually key in, we do batch number. We enter batch number first. So I'm going to go ahead and assign this the same batch number. So You'll notice that we had batch number in the other import and batch number on this import. So therefore we, unfortunately on this version of payroll data entry, we cannot get the next batch number. Notice if we try to use our next here, it's invalid for that column name. So it's generally, next is generally reserved for entry number, things like that, but we can't use it for batch number. So I'm going to have to assign, you can replace the batch number from your source file, or we can assign the batch number. I'm going to go ahead and just assign it the same batch number that we did before. Okay, and now we'll notice notice that we don't have department and employee number as separate fields on this version. So we have what we call employee key. So employee key, what we do is if we have a department with the separator and the employee number, what we do in the background is we take that and we kind of encrypt it with this code. And so it has a unique identifier, and that's what we use whenever that we don't have a. That's what we use whenever we reference that particular employee number. So this is a new field on 2018 that you're going to see is employee key. So for employee key, we can import it two ways. In this particular example, what we'll have it in a source file as department with a dash and then employee number. I'll show you another way if for some reason in your source file you have department in a separate column from your in a separate column. If we have the department and the employee numbers both in separate columns, we'll have to do a calculation for that, and after this example I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. So, but in this case, this is how we need the employee key field to pull that in. So I'm going to go ahead and point that to column 2. Check entry number, I'll just go ahead and assign that 1. Manual taxes, I didn't enter manual taxes when I did that. Let's get rid of all this. We'll just take all the defaults. Line type, I did have to enter a line type in there. So I'm going to go ahead and when I import, I'm only importing earnings. So I'm just going to go ahead and assign this E for earning. Okay. And the next field I'm going to need is my earnings code. So you notice we have all the H records, those are our header fields. And the L records, those are our line fields. So I'm looking for earnings code. And that's going to be pulling from column 3. And then we had our hours. And that's it. So at this point, let's go ahead and just accept that. We're not going to run it yet because I have 2 imports. What I want to do is I want to set this up so after the first import runs, it will automatically execute the second import. So I'm going to chain it. Chain 2. I'm going to find that entry. And I'll go ahead and accept. And let's just go ahead and accept it and run it. Imported. Want to look at the log? No. This will trigger the second job, and I'll just go ahead and run it. Accept. And yes. Imported 3 records. We want to look at the log. Let's just say yes, just so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so we get 3 records because one is showing our header, and basically it's the check entry number, the employee key. See the employee key? Notice how it's just code. It's not that employee number that we're used to. It's like encrypted code. So think of it like a credit card. We take a credit card, we encrypt it, and we store that encrypted value. And not the actual credit card. Well, this is the same thing. We're basically encrypting this combination of the department and the employee number, and we're coming up with this encrypted value. And so this value is associated with that specific employee. So anyway, that's our header information, and this is our line information for the L. So we had our earnings code, 80 hours. Earnings code 2, 5 hours. And that was our overtime. Notice we didn't have to do anything with the calculations as far as the rates. It automatically calculates that for us. So let's go ahead and take a look in payroll data entry, what that looks like here. So here's our batch import, and accept, and I'll say okay to that, and I'll hit the look up. Here's our record that we imported. There's our 2 lines that we, 2 earnings code that we imported. So it automatically calculated the overtime rate for us. So yeah, looks. One thing that's missing here is our deductions. Deductions didn't come in. So as far as deductions go, there is something in the import that we have to do to make those auto deductions automatically come in, and I'll go ahead and show you that. So let's go ahead and close out of this, and actually I'm going to go back in and just delete that. We're going to try this again. Select. Okay, so let's go back into our import. Now, this is on the PR underscore payroll header import, not the pay cycle. But what we need to do, this particular job does require some perform logic. So there are some default perform logic commands in here, and so let's take a look at that. I'm going to click on perform, and what we need to do is click on this button here to see our perform. This before write command, let me go ahead and select it. This tells us whether or not we're going to do auto deductions. Okay, so even though we had the flag set up to automatically take auto deductions, if this perform logic is set to 0 here, this command is set to 0, it is not going to run the auto deductions. So auto deductions aren't going to come in. If we want auto deductions to come in, we actually have to change this command, and we need to go ahead and put a 1 in here. 1 means it's going to go ahead, run that perform logic, and do the auto deductions. Okay, so on 2018, unfortunately, this does require some perform logic, in here for the two, the pay cycle record and the payroll data entry records to talk to each other. And so we need this perform logic in here. So we need to set this to 1 if we want auto deductions. A 0 is no auto deduction. So again, it doesn't just look at the flag. There's an auto deduction flag set to yes or no. We actually need to put this 1 in here. So let's go ahead and accept this. And just to be on the safe side, let's go into this perform. Let's go back in here. And we see that that's set to 1. Okay, good. Let's go ahead and just cancel out of here. And then let's go ahead and accept this. Execute, say no. And let's go ahead and rerun that job. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute the pay cycle import. Okay, so let's go into payroll data entry. And there are auto deductions that came in. So we have our earnings code and the auto deductions that came in. So so whenever you're doing an import and you're looking for those auto deductions, that's what you'll need to do. So we'll have a knowledge base entry on that, and you can look that up to remind yourself. But we just need to change that perform logic and set that perform logic command from a 0 to a 1. A 1 is going to bring in the auto deductions. Okay, let's go ahead and let me show you some more information about that auto key here, or employee key, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and close out this. Actually, I'll just delete this from payroll data entry. Oh, I don't want that. Let's go into and I think I created this job, and then I'm going to show you this source file here. Okay, so the pay cycle import is not a problem. There's only a few fields in the pay cycle, but this is where, and it doesn't have an employee key in the pay cycle, but this one has the employee key. So this is a little bit tricky. There will be a write-up on our knowledge base as far as putting this particular calculation in, but this is how we would have to actually calculate now that employee key if we have the department number on a separate column from the employee number. Okay, so basically what we have to do is we have to have our we have to create some temp fields, and a temp field, what we need to do is we need to set these to key assign only, because the employee key, that is part of the key for the data entry file. And we'll go ahead and check this box clear on each record, and we actually need to have this pointing for this particular source file. Have it point to column 2. So I'm going to change this to 2. And so that's going to hold my department, this tempo 1 here. And this tempo 2, this is going to store my employee number. And I'm going to put that in column 3. Again, assign temp on, key assign only, check the clear on each record. And then here is the calculation that we have to do. Okay, we'll just go ahead and open up the expression builder so you can see it. And I'll just leave this up here for a moment so you can take a look at that. And again, we're going to have this on our knowledge base where you can just well, copy and paste into the expression builder if you want. But this is actually a code that you will need to do that calculation. So basically, it's just running this command using that tempo 1 and tempo 2 in there, and those are again our department number and employee number. Okay. So this is required. This command is required if we have our department number and employee numbers in separate columns in our source file. If we have it like our other source file, such as this, we don't have to worry about that command. It will automatically convert this to that encrypted key that we saw. But if it's separate columns, we have to run that command to do that for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish up this import. Earnings code is pulling from 1, 2, 3, 4. Hours is 5. Okay, and let's get our execute. I'll say no. Let's just open up the pay cycle import that goes with that one. And let me okay, so yep, column 1, starting period, check date, column 1. So all that's good. Pay cycle B, batch number assign, import. Let me just double check that other, and this is yep, going to payroll import. Let me check one more thing on that payroll import for that batch number, just to confirm. Say no to execute. Let's see, this one. Okay. Batch number, assign, import. Okay, that's good. While I'm in here, I'm going to check that perform for this one. Make sure it has a 1 in there. Okay, and I look and I see it's a 1, so that is good. So I'm just going to close out of this, and I'll just go ahead and accept that. No to execute it, and let's go ahead and run this import. All right. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so pay cycle. Okay, let's run it. Annual view log. No. I'll just look at the log. And we see that employee key came in with that encrypted value there. So let's go ahead and see what it looks like in payroll data entry. Okay, there's my deductions, my earnings with that particular employee. So that's how you handle the employee importing that employee key. So there's two ways you can import that key. Okay, so this information will be available on our knowledge base. There'll also be an attached, I will include an attached document, frequently asked questions I'll put out there. That will have some of this information as well. And yeah, so that's it for this demo for importing into payroll data entry.